This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Welcome to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network for this September the 3rd, 2024. I'm Dustin Huffman. So glad you could join us. Coming up a little later on in the program, we're going to talk with Dr. Dale Ireland of Syngenta about a new product that they're going to hopefully be soft launching in 2025. If not, it'll be ready for full use in 2026, helping against soybean cyst nematode and sudden death syndrome in your soybean fields. But first, let's go ahead and run down those markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
Well, we're at the end of another trading day, and it's time to talk with Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. Ross, saw a little bit of strength here to start the day. We're able to hold on to that in the grains. How'd that all finish?
Hey, Dustin, had a firmer day of trade across the grain markets. It was a really good sign to see, but corn was 8 cents higher. Soybeans were 12 to 13 cents higher. And over in the wheat market, between Kansas City wheat and Chicago wheat, they were 12 to 15 cents higher. So firmer day of trade, and it was really a good sign to see, especially looking at what the outside markets were doing with the equity markets down hard. And they still are. The Dow's down a little over 550 points. The S&P's down about close to 110, and crude oil's been down over $3 for quite a while today. So very encouraging sign to see. But I think a lot of it was with the risk off day that you've seen across those outside markets with the managed money crowd so heavily short corn and beans and feeder cattle. You're seeing them take some of that risk off, which for them to de-risk when they're short the grain markets and the feeder cattle market, that's to cover those shorts and buy the market. So I think that's a lot of what we saw was more de-risking than anything.
Kind of a quiet but yet positive day over in the grains. Now, on the livestock side of things, we saw cattle and hogs end last week and end the month. Kind of the positive note. Were they able to keep that momentum here into the beginning after a holiday weekend?
They did. Live cattle and feeder cattle both had a kind of a mixed opening, and feeders were a little weaker, traded both sides of unchanged before live cattle ended the day 70 to $1.30 higher. Feeder cattle, they were $1.50 higher for most of the day. So it was a very solid sign to see. And like I said, the managed money crowd, they've been short feeder cattle here for the last few weeks. And it's not uncommon for them to go short feeders, but it's also not something they spend a ton of time doing. But live cattle, they were still long about 40,000 contracts. So there's really nothing that sticks out to me in a meaningful way with their live cattle position. But the good sign is that, we had the bearish cattle on feed report a couple weeks ago, and the cattle market, they had sold off aggressively going into that report, and we found strong buying since then. They've had about a $6 to $7 rally off of the recent lows, and that's all been occurring in the wake of cash trade being lower. Last week's cash trade was another $1 to $2 lower. You could say it was $3 lower in some spots across the north, but as a whole, it was 1 to 2 lower. The Packers did get a decent amount of numbers bought around them last week. They bought about 65,000 head. So I struggle this week to think that we're going to need to see cash be a whole lot higher, as they've got good ownership around them here for the next 2 to 3 weeks. And over in the hog market, hogs, they were down close to $1.50 early on in the day, and they found solid buying come in. It was right at their 9-day moving average for October and December hogs, and they went off the board about $1 higher across for the most part. And it was just backs into that theme. I mean, hogs have been strong here recently. They found solid buying, but I think a lot of what you saw in hogs was the same thing as we saw in corn, beans, wheat, live cattle, feeder cattle. It was just commodity buying as these outside markets and the equities were quote unquote having a meltdown. I mean, it's some big moves that are going on in those outside markets. I think the caution or the red flag warning is watch those outside markets. I don't in the big picture, I don't know that commodities are completely safe if we're setting into where the equity markets or the crude oil market is going to find more selling. I mean, crude oil's trading at the lowest level it's been at since this past February. So there's definitely, while today felt good, there's definitely some warning signs out here that I think people involved in the commodity markets need to be paying attention to.
All right, lots to think about. So if there's investors out there trying to look at what their options are in the commodities market, or farmers trying to take advantage and get protection in the commodities market that's doing what it's doing right now, especially with the outside influences, what's the best way for them to get in touch with agmarket.net to get some ideas?
You can reach me at our office here in Anthony. It's 712-373-3276, or you can visit agmarket.net to find any of the ag market brokers.
Well, thank you, Ross. We appreciate the insight as always, and thanks for coming by. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks for having me, Dustin. Have a good one.
That again was Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing numbers right now on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network market screen.
At the close, September corn was up 6.5 at 371 3/4. Soybeans up 15 1/4 at 973 3/4. Soybean meal down $2.20 at 308.60. Soybean oil up $1.37 at 43.17. Chicago wheat up 10 3/4 at 525 even. Kansas wheat up 3/4 cent at 545 1/2. Minneapolis spring wheat up 7 3/4 at 562 1/4. And oats up 8 3/4 at 349 even. Live cattle were down 72 cents at 177.90. Feeders off $1.80. They're at 239.50. Lean hogs up 50 cents at 82.17. Pork cutouts up a dime at 91.17. And Class 3 milk 3 cents higher at 22.20.
And that's been our ag market recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association, and the Soy Checkoff. When we come back, Dr. Dale Ireland of Syngenta joins us. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, we were at the Farm Progress Show, and I had a chance to talk with the folks at Syngenta about some new seed treatment products they got coming out, hopefully with a soft launch in 2025 and into 2026 for a full release. It's called Victrato, and it's going to help us with sudden death syndrome and soybean cyst nematode, because we've constantly got to be looking over our back to see what they're going to be doing and always mixing up our plan of attack. Talking right now at the Syngenta booth with Dale Ireland, and we're talking today about a whole new product out here for soybeans that is going to be coming soon. And so tell us a little bit about that and what it's about and what it's going to be doing.
Thanks, Dustin. I appreciate the opportunity. This new product, we currently call it Timerium. It will be branded as Victrato in soybeans. Should be registered in early 2025. We may get a chance to limit or a soft launch in 25, but it'll be a full launch in 26 is what's planned.
All right, and so tell us about what that's going to do for our soybeans once it hits the marketplace and we can actually use it.
Yeah, so this is a new fungicide, nematicide, and it's a seed treatment that protects against sudden death syndrome and nematodes. It's actually going to set a new level of protection for multiple different nematode species that attack soybeans, as well as sudden death syndrome and suppression of some early season diseases on soybean.
We just visited this morning with the Soybean Cyst Nematode Coalition, and they're talking about the fact that nematodes are getting better at adapting to the treatments that are out there. So having more weapons in your toolbox to use against them, especially when we're looking at prices being what they are and inputs being what they are, you got to squeeze every dime out of every acre and out of every plant. Having that extra treatment, extra level of protection is really going to be key.
That's really true, Dustin. What we find is when you use all the tools, as you said, all the tools in your toolbox, rotation, crop genetics, making sure you use a good seed treatment, and like I said, Victrato actually outperforms anything that's in the marketplace today. So we're very excited about this, and we really feel like it'll deliver a lot of value to growers.
And of course, you also said it's got that fungicide capability as well. So what kind of disease protection are we talking about here?
Yeah, so it protects to a higher level against sudden death syndrome. It also suppresses frog eye leaf spot through about mid-season. So it's not going to replace a foliar fungicide, but it will keep your beans cleaner so that when you do apply your foliar fungicide, you have a cleaner bean and a higher yield potential.
And that's what we've been really discussing, for the last couple of years, and actually beyond that, is that the whole crop protection program starts the minute you put that seed in the ground, and having those traits available right off the bat is going to make it so much more efficient, especially when you're talking cost efficient later on when you need to keep that protection up.
That's right. And you always want to make sure you use your plant genetics first. You want to select a good SDS bean, a good soybean cyst resistant bean, rotate those sources of resistance against SCN, and then also a good frog eye bean. But this type of a tool like Victrato is going to help raise that yield potential for the growers that need that.
And are we seeing how it's working with as part of a whole crop protection program? Is that initial piece? Are we seeing what kind of results are we seeing there?
Absolutely. So one thing that we really pride ourselves at Syngenta Seed Care is the safety of our products. Both Saltro, which is already on the market, and Timerium or Victrato in the coming several months are also very safe. They don't interact with the PPO, the more aggressive herbicide programs we have to use in some of these resistant weed situations. So it really works very well with the system, and it keeps those plants safe and allows more early growth.
All right, so obviously we want folks to keep their eyes and ears open for that release date. Hopefully, you said Q1, hopefully we can get that done, but for sure 26 it'll be ready to go.
Yes.
So where do they find out more information about the products and what's going on in the Syngenta pipeline?
Very good. So any of your Syngenta reps or wherever you can buy Cruiser Max Apex fungicide insecticide seed treatment, they'll know there about Saltro and when Timerium will be available, or Victrato.
All right, well, Dr. Ireland, we thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
Thank you, Dustin.
And that again was Dr. Dale Ireland of Syngenta. And that brings us to the end of today's program. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, X, and on our YouTube channel, where you can subscribe and hit the bell icon and be notified each time we put out a new video project. Also, don't forget about the free 3 times daily market analysis podcast sent right to your mobile device through Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. You can get that openings, midday, and closings analysis right at your fingertips. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Andy Peterson, Mark Magnuson, and Riley Smith, we thank you for joining us. This has been Ag Matters PM.